When you got an echo.
Good, 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 good.
All right. I think we should be good, guys.
Recording in progress.
All right, everyone, welcome to the TechnologySource virtual roundtable for January. Things are moving quick. It's January 2026. I'm your host, Rob Olson. I'm the Chief Technology Officer with TechnologySource. A quick blurb about who we are and what we do. So we're a solution partner that builds unique, best-in-breed solutions for our trusted advisors and their clients. By leveraging a network of over 500 providers in managed IT, cybersecurity, telecom, mobility, AI, and analytics, we design solutions tailored to reduce operational expenses, improve efficiencies, and transform the customer experience. Our focus is to create solutions as unique as the challenges our advisors' clients face. So you've probably seen the headline of this event. Why do you need more? Why you should demand more from your MSP? And there's a few reasons why, and there's actually 7 factors that are affecting businesses today that are driving the need to ask for more, demand more from your MSP. And a next-gen MSP is the answer to that question. And here's a couple of key reasons, a couple of key things that are happening right now that are impacting the businesses of our clients. So number one is rapid technological change and digital transformation. And I'm not advancing. Oh, that's not good. I might have to go down here, guys. Hang on a second. There we go. Escalating cybersecurity risks, IT leadership and strategic alignment needs, talent shortages and skills gaps, cost pressures and optimization, vendor management and consolidation demands, and finally, competitive differentiation and innovation, which everyone's looking for. So a little bit about today's guests. VinorX is a leading provider of IT and networking solutions, security solutions, and VoIP telephony services. Their dedicated team has continually evolved to meet the ever-changing demands of the information technology industry. Our trusted advisors and their clients were looking for something more than what was in place today. They needed a next-gen partner that offered more than break-fix resolution. The addition of VinorX to our portfolio introduced the concept of the next-gen MSP to provide strategic IT support versus simple break-fix. And with that, I'll introduce our guest, Wayne Viner, Chief Executive Officer of VinorX. Good morning, Wayne.
Good morning. And thanks for having us.
Good morning. And then Shane Gossard, Chief Revenue Officer of VinorX. Good morning, Shane.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Hope everybody's doing great.
And you're in the lovely state of Maryland.
Currently, we're sitting in Maryland.
Right, home of the Terrapins.
Home of the Terrapins. We're about 20 minutes from DC proper.
And the famous show Terp Talk, which if you don't live there, you probably don't know about it, but you definitely need to tune in. There's a fantastic host that hosts that channel every week. So we got that gentleman here today, Mr. Wayne Viner. Wayne, one of the things that I thought we would talk about here during this event is kind of the comparison between a traditional MSP and a next-gen MSP, which I believe VinorX is probably the definition of here. So for organizations that are considering switching MSPs, and a lot of our customers that are on here today are making that decision now, what are the most immediate and measurable benefits they will see after moving from a traditional MSP to a next-gen MSP like Vinerex?
Well, a traditional MSP is built around closing tickets, and they often talk about that's why you have them. They're great at fixing problems that already occurred. When you talk about a next generation MSP, we call it Enterprise Technology Management because we're looking to attach to a customer at a different level. Sure, we fix things. Sure, we have a help desk every day to help tickets. But the reason you're looking for additional help or something different is you need somebody to help you actually operate your organization through IT. So our goal is to look at your business plan, evaluate where you're going, put an IT plan next to that actually gives you value at that level. We call that CIO services, being actual part of your decision-making team. We make sure that you have the right technologies, you're buying the right software for the right reasons, you have the right number of licenses, that your projects actually get finished. And it's easier to do that once you understand where you're going and why you're going there. And then, of course, we do the traditional MSP things. We close tickets, we provide software, we provide hardware, but it's the entire package. That's where we're differentiated, and we're differentiated in that package at the same price or less than you're probably already paying. So it's a much better value.
So they wouldn't pay extra unless they needed some service beyond what they were using already. But that allows our partners, our client partners to scale their business and to deal with potential issues down the road that may require your assistance that they didn't anticipate such as AI and how AI is used and what are we going to do with AI? Should we be working with AI? I think that's a great point, Wayne. Anything you want to add to that, Shane, or did Wayne cover it all?
I think it's important to note that a traditional MSP does a very good job at closing out the tickets, like Wayne had mentioned, but it is purely reactive. So with a reactive model, you're more or less sustaining what you have today. With a proactive model or enterprise technology management, that is a roadmap to the future. That is not only trying to save you money on your IT spend, but also putting in, solutions in place that are going to help you advance and grow the business and ultimately impact your bottom line.
And
So, sorry, go ahead.
when people ask, why would you have that CIO level service? And why would you not charge a lot for that? It's easier to make a customer happy and to align our services to help you if we actually know where you're going. It helps both of us. So we're much more effective when we can sit with company leadership and say, tell me where you want to be, who you want to be, how you think you're going to get there, why you want to do that. And then we're much more tuned to actually help you, serve you, and get you where you're going.
Right. No, makes complete sense. You mentioned a traditional MSP versus a next-gen MSP like Vinerex. Can you provide a little bit of an overview on what that traditional MSP, what kind of services they offer, besides trouble ticketing, right? We got that one, but what do they offer? And maybe highlight, I know you've got a very large product set, maybe highlight some of the services that you bring to market as well.
Jen, you want that or should I start?
Yeah, so a traditional MSP, they offer the help desk. They're going to offer the break fix. They're going to be able to help you fulfill orders for software and hardware, but you may be lacking some of that guidance. You may be working with that MSP and you go out and you purchase a new cyber insurance. Maybe that MSP is involved, maybe they're not. Maybe the current MSP isn't doing all of the things you think they're doing. You might have backup in place. I talked to a customer the other day that their current MSP has backups in place. Then they found out it hasn't been tested in 4 months. Well, how are you going to test a backup? Or it hasn't even, not that even it hasn't been tested, it hasn't been backed up in 4 months. They didn't know that until the test was ran. So things like that kind of come out of nowhere and blindside customers. We try to get ahead of that.
Yeah, nothing's worse than trying to scramble to find a solution at the last minute to fix something that's happening in your business today. We live in a now society. Our clients they're not used to waiting. They can go on Amazon, buy anything they need. So being able to react quickly to something is really, really critical. Wayne, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. Another layer is that your traditional MSP has these services that sort of already exist. Okay. The help desk. You're buying help desk services from an organization that offers a help desk that's already there. It's not necessarily tailored to you. You're looking at solutions that they provide that are already there. And once again, not necessarily tailored to you. See, and the part that's usually not at a traditional MSP is the tailoring level, is the what I would call integration with the customer, and that's where we excel. So sure, you can get licensing, you can get hardware, you get software, you can get help desk. Those are the pillars of a managed service provider right now. And where the differentiation comes in is the services above that, such as working for a business plan with you and change that to an IT plan, making sure that that's an executable strategy for your company and aligning with where you want to go as your company evolves.
No, excellent points for sure. And the part about aligning your IT plan with your business plan, um, I'm not sure I've heard anybody ever mention that before, but I think that's a critical consideration. It's got to work together, right? You can't be going opposite directions or you'll have some problems. And sometimes we found that we talk to clients and there is that disconnect. So um, earlier I talked about the 7 factors that are driving the need to upgrade your MSP to a next gen MSP like Vinarex. And I thought we would touch on some of those factors and then ask a few questions that kind of tie back to those questions. So uh, one of the factors was rapid technological change and digital transformation, right? How has rapid cloud adoption, AI, and hybrid IT changed what businesses should expect from their current MSPs?
Well, I think traditionally, you can take a look at prior to all the cloud-based, everything was prem-based. You brought in an MSP to manage the prem-based equipment. Now you've got bills from 8 different suppliers. You've got to manage all of that. You have to make sure that everything is right-sized. A lot of times people get sold by the sales guy, right? They're talking to someone, they think it's something they need, they make the purchase. Lo and behold, they just bought a Ferrari, but really what they needed was a BMW. So there's a lot of that goes on, and we really try to get in there and make a difference with that piece. Wayne?
Well, rapid technological change means that in order to be effective, whoever you're dealing with who helps you with your IT has to be out there with you. And once again, they have to understand where you want to be. So it is harder now to manage a larger customer because it's easier to work from anywhere. You can work from home, you can work from vacation, you can work in the office. That brings up its own set of security challenges. So there's one rapid technological change that caught a lot of people short. The other one is that everybody thinks they need to have everything in the cloud. Sometimes that fits, sometimes that doesn't. We've had customers who look at the cloud bill and say, why am I spending $3,000 a month? It's more than the file servers we used to own. What am I getting for that? And you have to go back and say, well, why did you do that? Why did you want that? So making sure that you have the why recorded, making sure that the solutions that are offered actually fit the customer, it's a really big thing. I'll call it the non-alignment of your vendor to your company often creates the problem. The vendors have to be right-sized for the company. A mid-sized company with 100 people probably shouldn't go out and hire McKinsey to do a survey for them because it's going to be $5 million. It's that type of alignment that we're talking about. The vendor that you pick has to align with your organization, with your organization's goals.
No, that's an excellent point. And both of you spoke to right sizing the solution and not, coming in with a package or a service solution that is over the top, out of the budget, and doesn't really solve the problem. And I see that a lot too, unfortunately, where, people end up spending a lot more than they have to. And if they worked with someone like you, that's going to be able to do something a little bit more a la carte, and a little bit more custom, it ends up saving them money and allows them to use that solution versus putting it off.
And then the reverse of that is true as well. Unfortunately, some people decide that they're going to rapidly grow an organization, but don't change the software, don't change the support basis. And that leaves somebody lacking. Usually it's their customers going, hey, you don't provide the same level, dear business, you don't provide the same level of support to us that you used to. Your solutions don't fit the type of product we bought from you. So you don't want to underprovide and you don't want to overspend. There's a spot in the middle where technology and your business align, and we work to find that spot. Other people mentioned AI, and AI comes up a lot in this. Right now, almost every software vendor that you look at has some AI solution that says they are the AI vendor for you. Their AI takes care of everything. I've heard and we've experienced that sometimes that AI part also doesn't align. You have a customer, which is the people we're speaking to today, where the salesperson from their existing software vendor comes and says you have to use this AI, and there's just a lack of understanding. What does that AI do? Why would you use it? Where does my data go? Who has access to this data? There's a lot of data governance that has to be worked out if you let somebody in for AI. So again, we're not saying that any of these solutions are bad, just have to make sure that the customer understands why you'd buy those solutions, the price fits, and that the end vendor solution still performs for the customer and still provides the value that they hope to get when they sign that contract.
No,
And
very good points.
you can bring me back in.
Very good points. And that leads us to the second factor, which is escalating cybersecurity risks. And you look at things like ransomware, phishing, AI-driven threats, as you just mentioned a minute ago. AI is becoming a bigger part of the business. Well, security is a concern if you're using AI. How should organizations rethink cybersecurity from a reactive service to proactive governance-driven strategy?
Now, that is a great question. Um, the very simple part of the story is you have to make sure that your cyber solution, the cyber defenses, go on all of your devices. You can put a lot of different words in for that, high-tech words. You just have to make sure that the solutions that you buy are actually used and that they work together as opposed to working apart. So you start to make a list of what solutions do you need. The simplest one is good education about what are the criminals trying to do to you and how do you avoid being caught. Second one is that you need pretty good software, and that software has to go on your PCs, on your cloud servers, on your cell phones, on your tablets. Often the last three of those are a little bit missed. So you get a great solution for your PC or your laptop, and you say, well, what's on your cell phone? And I go, why would I protect that? And well, I think everybody knows the answer to that. Oh, there's probably more information on your cell phone you want to protect than there might be on your PC. And then the question of, well, what's protecting your cloud server? I go, well, we bought it from Microsoft. I understand that, but what defenses do you have? What are you looking at to see how many times you're attacked? And you get a blank stare because nobody thought of that. A lot of that thinking around cyber risk, and that covers, so phishing is the one you need to be educated against. You need to know what to look for, but you need good phishing defenses. So there is software for that. Ransomware. Well, you need to know what the ransomware crooks are trying to do, and you need good software defenses for that. But then it's on you as the business owner to make sure that you have a backup and restore strategy. As Shane mentioned a moment ago, a lot of people really talk about backup and they don't talk about restore. So if you want to stump a current provider, ask them how many times they've restored your data and that they know that the backup that you're paying for actually works. And often that's only found out when you actually have to restore it. And they're like, well, we don't have everything. Why didn't we know that? Well, we don't have room to restore it. There's reasons, but you have to make sure that people restore it. AI-driven threats, some of those are self-created. Example, somebody goes on a free version of ChatGPT, puts your entire business plan in there, and forgets they ever did it. And all of a sudden, your information is out there. You didn't intend it. You were looking for help, but you used the wrong product at the wrong time, and now your stuff's out there. And there's other basic things. Most of them revolve around preventing human accidents that turn into software disasters. Somebody leaves their laptop at Starbucks and it's unlocked. You go back, the laptop's still there, but you have no idea what happened in between. Well, that should have had a lockdown process. You should have built protections in case we lose this device. Somebody happened to have a vendor come in from the outside to fix the air conditioner, but the air conditioner is on their company network. They never thought to put a second network that just takes care of these physical services, like the security cameras, the air conditioning, the heating, et cetera, where we bring people in that we don't know where they came from. They could have been working for that HVAC vendor for a week. And all of a sudden, they're on our network with admin level access because nobody thought about that. Once again, it's something you think about after the theft has happened. And some of these are just basic business policies that people don't enforce as much anymore. Do you leave sensitive data out in the open? Do you lock your office when you leave? They're sort of the same thing, but all of that's looked at as your security perimeter. And you have to make sure that those things are taken care of. One of the biggest theft incidents that got the FBI involved we ever had was somebody who apparently let in maybe they really weren't the copier repair guy, and they hijacked their fax machine. And all of a sudden, faxes were going out requesting money, and the customer didn't know this was happening, but it looked like it was coming from their phone number because it was. So that's just a device that was on the network, no particular security protocol, and it got hacked. So you try to close down each one of these in a way that makes sense to the customer. Eventually, it brings up a business buzzword, IT buzzword called Zero Trust Networking, or ZTN. And that's where we're really trying to put our customers. It's not necessarily expensive and it's not scary, and it really isn't zero trust, but it's as close to zero as possible. What does that mean? I'll give you the example. We left a notebook at Starbucks. We put in a zero trust policy that said if this notebook has been left idle for 5 minutes, it immediately goes to the Windows lock screen. If it is left idle for 10 minutes, it starts to disconnect from anything important out on the network. If somebody touches it, it makes you re-authenticate. It might be a thumbprint, it might be a password, it might be a USB key that you have with you, but it constantly acts like the next time it's touched, it might be a threat. It might be something that you don't want to happen. And in the end, it certainly will reinforce for those who leave their computers on in their office. It's going to auto reboot you every night because a lot of these threats sit in your memory and are launched later when you're not looking on purpose. And you'll see a lot of attacks where the authorities come in and say, this attack was on this computer system for 100 days before it was launched.
Mm-hmm.
Say, well, why would you do that? Well, in 100 days or 90 days, a criminal will figure that everybody who's important will have logged into the system. Even if the CEO only comes in once every so often and logs in, he doesn't really use the computer. Within 90 or 100 days, even the CEO is going to log in. So it'll capture all of this data. And it will figure out who to attack, who's important, who has the best Rolodex, who has the most social security numbers, the access to the bank, and then the system attacks. The other reason a lot of these threats sit dormant is most companies don't keep, we talked about backups a moment ago, they don't really keep active backups more than 30, 60 days, 90 days. So if you are attacked, the immediate response from the IT team is, that's okay, I've got a backup from last week, I'll put that on. Well, your cybersecurity people and the FBI are going to say, oh, no, that's already been infected. We have to figure out when the last time was this hasn't been infected. Often
a lot of data being lost right there.
A lot of data being lost. So the common sense, a lot of the common sense that says, hey, I've got antivirus on my computer, we back up. God, I got 3 or 4 weeks of backups here, I'm fine, is a false sense of fine. So
that's a great point.
Have a discussion about that. Make sure you are where you think you are, and you might decide you don't need to change anything, which is fine. As long as you're aware of what's going on, that's enough for me. You guys are going to run your own businesses. We're just here to provide you information and possibly alternative routes to get where you're going.
No, all great points. Shane, is there anything you wanted to add on top or emphasize?
Yeah. So years ago, IT was more set it and forget it. If you're talking about threats from the outside, it is now the #1 form of organized crime in the world. It's constantly changing. It's constantly evolving. Getting into a 36-month term with one provider might not be the smartest move because you may need to move somewhere else sooner. But when your cybersecurity measures fail, what do? You fall back on your insurance, right? So insurance used to be sort of set it and forget it, but now it is not. If you look at the questionnaires, they're anywhere between 5 to 10 pages long. Customers do their best to fill them out, and they are loaded with questions and informations, and a lot of customers don't know how to fully answer it. So if you answer it 80% effective and you don't check all the boxes, maybe you're only covered about 80%. 40% of all claims for cyber insurance are being rejected today. So an insurance company's job is to sell you a policy and figure out how not to pay it. So companies should be working with their MSPs today. Their MSPs should be making sure that their policy is the exact policy they need and that they've filled out the application correct, because you don't want to find out you have incorrectly filled out a cyber insurance policy the day you submit a claim, and then you find out you're not protected. You can't come back from that.
All great points, and they all point to the fact that customers need an expert in that space to assist them. I don't think anybody has the resources, whether it's budget or expertise or personnel, that they'd like. There's just a lot of gaps, and having a VineRx on staff makes a lot of sense. The third factor I want to talk about is IT leadership and strategic alignment needs. And many SMB and mid-market companies lack full-time CIO or CISO leadership. How can VineRx fill that strategic gap effectively?
Well, actually, a lot of that's by teamwork, and I'm going to prove that by teaming up with Shane here on this one. So I'll be back in a second. So Rob, just hang on a second. The microphone.
Good. What you
All right. So now we're in the same place to team up on this. The leadership that's provided by a chief information security officer is, well, it's exactly that. If you break that term down, chief information officer sits at the same place in the company as a chief financial officer at the level of a chief executive officer, and it participates in building the strategy that a company is going to use to get ahead in life. For IT, almost everything is touched by IT these days. So having a business plan almost inherently says, hey, I need an IT plan that's going to work with this. I need to pick the right vendors. I'm making an investment in sales. I'm changing this company. I'm changing the way we do inventory, and all of that's touched by software. So having somebody who's been through this, who can actually sketch out a plan, put a schedule next to your plan, sit in a strategy meeting and discuss the impact of AI on your business, the impact of changing accounting systems, the impact of new firewalls, or dealing with it from the other side, saying, hey, my customers now require that we meet National Institutes of Standard and Technology guidelines. How do I get this company to do that? I'm working with a hospital system. All of a sudden, I need to be HIPAA compliant. Well, how do I do that? Where's the cost in that? Where's the benefit? So in order to do a couple things, make sure that the budget works, because your IT budget's generally a big part of a spend on a new project. Making sure the timeline works, and making sure that from a CISO perspective, which is Chief Information Security, once we take care of that, we need to come back and tell you how to implement that. Often for VineRx, it's a blend of the staff that you have and the products that you have within a framework that you can relate to as an owner of a company, that you have somebody to turn to who has done corporate strategy before and executed on those plans. So it doesn't mean that we're going to get rid of everybody. What it means is we're going to get the right alignment out of everybody to deliver on the promise. A lot of it still comes down to we operate a business to get somewhere. If we don't have a plan of how to get there, well, chances of getting there are a lot slimmer. So putting the same rigor you would have with a financial budget into an IT plan makes a lot of sense if that's something that you absolutely need for your company. And I might have over-answered that, but I'll let Shane clean that up.
Yeah, to simplify things, hope is not a good business strategy. And when you're working with an MSP in the traditional sense, and they're only doing, fulfilling hardware, software orders, they're only doing some break fix and some help desk, you're not moving the needle forward. There's no strategy. So that is hope. If you add the governance and the strategy, then you have an ability to move the company forward. So there's it's a paradigm shift, really.
I think the ramp has got to be impactful too. The fact that you already work with that company, their business goals, objectives, long-term IT strategy, jumping in as a VCIO or VCISO is going to be a lot shorter ramp than if you were to go out and try to hire a third party to do that role, and it takes them 6 months to figure out what you have and how it works and how it fits together. Um, the fourth factor I mentioned earlier was talent shortages and skill gaps, and this becomes something we hear a lot of. Given the ongoing shortage of cloud security and data talent, when does outsourcing specialized expertise from an organization like Vinerex make more sense than building an internal team?
Well, we can echo back. Great question. We can echo back to your third factor, which is there actual IT leadership in this organization for
Mhm.
somebody who's going to do a specialty to report to? Now, if there is, if that structure exists, then we're down to usage and cost. So if you need and doing some advanced firewall work and you need an expert at turning all that into a private network and a VPN, and you can add in some of the telephony and network stuff. The chain can spit out here about how we're going to build your networks. And that guy makes $250,000 a year, but you only need him for 15 hours a week. You're probably going to go out and say, hey, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
We really aren't going to. But so we can go find that expert to bring into your situation, especially once we understand the situation. Say, hey, we can do this. You can still have all the benefits, but you only need to pay for the part you're using. So often,
Mhm.
unless you're a very sophisticated company, there just isn't a lot of room for experts in your budget because they cost so much. So, sure, there's a talent shortage out there, but often, if it's inside of a solid plan, which is a big if, we can bring that expertise in. Uh, from our team, we're using the same experts across the country. So we can find them again. That's often a reason to say, I don't want to outsource this. I want to hire somebody who just works here.
Mhm.
Um, I understand that. But as I said, often in a corporate structure, there just isn't the budget for that, but the work still needs to get done. So you have to make a determination as a business owner. Is it okay to use an outside source where I can get the same expert every month for 15 hours or every 2 weeks and build the relationship, yet I don't actually have to own them? It's okay for the consulting firm to own them. And generally, we do want to talk about your overall plan and where you're going to go before we commit to that. But we're a great source of being able to stretch your IT impact without loading up with payroll.
Yeah. No, I mean, outsourcing can be a dirty word sometimes, but nobody has the budget they need, the personnel, the skill sets they want. And utilizing an organization like Vinerex helps fill those gaps and helps meet the budget requirements. So I think it makes perfect sense. Great points. Shane, did you want to add anything to that, or do you
Yeah,
think we're
yeah, I
okay?
think it's not only for companies that don't have a CIO level resource or an IT team. Sometimes you might have an IT staff with no governance. Maybe the CEO is working with IT, or I've seen it before, the chief marketing officer. So bringing us in kind of a barrier between the two to help drive that strategy and accountability. That's one. Number two would be companies. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought a little bit on this one.
I'll give you a second to pick back up on that. Another place where you say there's a talent shortage or a skills gap that I've seen, that this is real, is you decide you're going to go do something else. And I'll use AI as an example. Well, of course, you don't have that person, and very few of them actually exist.
Hmm.
So you have a choice of either listening to your vendors who need to sell you that software to make their
Right.
numbers, or bring in somebody that can actually explain what the AI is going to do, how the AI actually does or doesn't align with your business. And as I said before, where the data goes, who has access to this, so you can make a determination. And that person, you say, look, I'm going to give you 20 hours of time. I'm going to explain this. I'm not selling you the software. I'm just explaining where you're going to invest. And then you can tell me if you want more or you want less. And that view on it has saved a lot of people a lot of money, especially in this AI game. If you remember a year and a half ago, everybody said, oh, you've got to develop AI. You as a company have to develop AI. And we can tell stories about people who put $200,000 into something and turned around and they went, oh, that's okay. Microsoft already put that into Word. You don't have to worry about it. There's no way to get your money back. Well, why did you do that? The answer was the vendor told me I did and everybody else was doing it. But we didn't ask, does it really fit? Was it going to deliver? So right now, a lot of technology looks like it did for those who have been around that long, for when the internet showed up in the first place, people were making websites. And that investment just wasn't returned. So there's that thought around AI, but there's other things like that. Often the line is, if somebody makes your proposal and you're like, oh my God, that's a lot of money, you probably should have a trusted somebody's not interested in making that sale to turn to and go, why would I buy this thing? And you hope the response to that is about 20 questions back at you. What are you doing? Where are you going? Who told you to buy that? Why do you think you need it? And try to find out whether that's a good fit or not. So you can use a car analogy. Shane did. Somebody says, hey, you need to go buy a Honda Accord. Well, that's a great car. What are you trying to do?
Yeah, I think so many companies are searching and looking at, and they believe they need to have AI. They don't want to get left behind. And I think a critical component here is speaking to an agnostic expert like yourself or like Shane that can help guide them on what you should do, what you shouldn't do, how much you should spend, and what's going to deliver the ROI. Because there are a lot of solutions out there that are very pricey and don't deliver what you might expect just yet. So a lot of applications are still being developed around AI, and for some companies, it's probably best just to wait a little bit longer. But talk to an expert to find out if that's the right answer or if the right answer is to step into it today. And that brings us really to the next factor, which is cost pressures and optimization. Everyone's favorite subject, every leader's favorite subject is not having enough money and still having the responsibility of doing your job. Could cloud spend and licensing costs are spiraling for many organizations? What role should MSPs and advisors play in cost optimization, FinOps, and measurable ROI?
What role should they play? Well, that is a loaded question. Once again, it depends on what level of MSP you're looking for. If the MSP that you're working for sells Microsoft licenses, Dell computers, and closes tickets, they're not going to have a whole lot of input on that. And if they do a great job at that, and that's what you want, then that's what most of them offer. If you can't tell by now, we're a little more interested in why companies work and how to improve them, right, and where they're going to go from here, and building strategies. And then you click in that IT element into that business IT plan, and all of it works and it makes sense. So my view is, if you're really serious about this, you should have a lot to say about cost optimization and how finance works and how you interoperate and what ROI you get, and whether the ROI is actually from the IT or because, hey, our IT team really helped the marketing team and sales went up. So that's a hidden boost. Or we actually finally got an order taking system that works online, and there was an IT bill for that, but we didn't have to hire anybody else to work on their order taking side, order fulfillment. In our project for 5 years, that saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then there's the real things that have happened where it really wasn't as much about the cost pressure. It wasn't the cost was too high. It's that there was no result. So often you go, well, why are you mad at it? Why do you hate IT? And you go, well, we spent $100,000 on this project. And, well, that's a right price for what you got. Yeah, but it didn't work. Ooh, well. So the cost pressure and optimization, they had the budget, they had the time, but they didn't get the result because it was farmed out to 5 consultants who all did a separate part, but nobody was in charge. And that's what we call on our end the cake analogy, where a customer says, hey, I wanted a cake. And I talked to my vendors and they said, we got you, don't worry. And I opened the box and there was a bag of sugar, there was flour, there was eggs, there was milk. And I called the vendors and said, where's the cake? They go, it's in the box. Now, this isn't a cake. And they go, sure it is. You just have to put it together. But they didn't have the wherewithal to put it together. So in those scenarios, we're the guys that actually deliver the cake to you. We might use the same vendors you already have. We might have different recommendations, but if you actually want a cake, we'll get that baked for you and we'll deliver it the way you want it.
Yeah, Vinorix is our experience with you so far has been that you take the time to really understand the client's business, their long-term IT goals, and understand their budget and what you can do with that budget. There's not an endless budget, and it's got to make sense. And ultimately, it's all got to drive an ROI. And
Yeah.
we've heard that a couple times, and it's something I think it can't be said enough. You have to look at the ROI. It's not just how great this thing is, or we should be doing this. Does it drive an ROI for your business? And where are you getting that information from? How are you coming to that determination? And the experts at Vinorx have a lot of experience in that area for sure.
Before you move on to the next point, the one other thing is the vendor management. If you are in a situation we have long-term engagements with several vendors, but they're hard to bring together, so it's hard to get the result you want, we are actually a good choice for that in dealing with the multiple vendors that you already have to deliver the outcome that you want.
Yes, that's the sixth factor, right? Is the vendor management and consolidation,
Oh,
and
okay.
how are you managing all that? Vendor sprawl is a real thing. It impacts security, cost, operational efficiency. And what does true vendor management look like in a modern IT strategy? So you touched on that a little bit. Maybe if you want to expand that a little bit more, that'd be great.
Yeah, so obviously we're talking about cloud earlier, right? And how many different providers you might have from cloud services. You might have a colocation bill, you might have a hosted voice, you may have some SASE products. It really depends. There's probably a whole plethora of different bills you might have. Being able to have one point of contact to manage all that and manage it effectively is huge. It's going to save you time, it's going to save you staff resources, and ultimately get to better resolution quicker. There's a lot of reasons to do that. Now, going back to what we talked about before with the vendor management, talking about cost optimization. Cost optimization doesn't always mean finding the cheapest piece of equipment out there. That's the easy part. What you really need to do you have somebody that's going to manage that whole ecosystem and look for the pieces that are actually going to move the business forward while saving them money, as opposed to maybe purchasing the cheapest thing available. There's a lot of things we can do and that an MSP should be doing on the vendor management side.
All great points. The seventh and final factor we talked about was competitive differentiation and innovation, which today's marketplace, I think, is critical. And as you know, we work very hard to find differentiated solutions for our client partners. Is AI and digital first, as AI and digital first competitors raise the bar, how can businesses use Vinorix not just to operate IT, but to drive innovation and competitive differentiation?
Once again, great question, because that's where the world's going. So you certainly did your homework here. You can use us for several things, but you're right. The goal here is to make you, as the customer, a better company. We're here to make your company work and fulfill where you want to go. So bringing these goals to us, and you might like the rest of your IT, you just don't have this part. So this can be handled separately as a different engagement. And you say, look, here's where our customers are. Here's where our competitors are going. We're not there yet. And here's where we want to be. How can I get there? What vendors would I choose? Why would I do that? How do these interrelate? If I make a decision, how long do I have to stay with that decision? And if we start today, when is this going to work? And you should be able to ask those questions of your service provider, and they should be able to give you a pretty good answer of where you're going to be if you invest the money, when you invest the money. Some of these, I don't think you can get away from. I think AI, you're going to have to engage with AI. I think that digital innovation, everything going to be driven down to the cell phone, is going to happen whether you want to or not. And the question just is, when does that actually cost or make you money? You got to start with that. And then from there, how much do you have to invest and how quickly do you have to invest? And then the one that usually does not get asked is, if I buy this today, how long does this last and when do I have to do it again? because often when you go down this rabbit hole, as somebody might say, it never ends. You're into a rat race and you are committed to staying in that rat race. It's as regular as anything else, as taxes and payroll in your business, that you have to stay digitally competitive. But we're here to help with that. I think it's a reality that you have to deal with. Do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, if MSPs aren't getting involved in the business like this, again, it all goes back to you're sustaining, you're not moving forward. Talking about AI, you know how that works. Garbage in, garbage out, right? You need to have clean data. You need to have a partner that's going to help you with that cleaning of the data. You're going to have a strategy baked around all of that. If you're trying to do all of this on your own, or you have an MSP that's just fulfilling orders rather than providing that governance, it's going to fail.
And I think that's why, back to our story, why you were looking for somebody who did this a little differently. So we agree it's a non-standard way to look at IT. It's the same way that larger companies look at their own IT. We've cut that out. We can deliver it to a small to mid-sized company to actually provide them with the same technology leadership that you see at larger companies in bite-sized pieces that they can use to fulfill their dreams. And IT should not just be a break and fix service. IT should be something that gets you where you want to go.
Well, gentlemen, thank you. That was amazing. I think you definitely have pointed out some of the challenges that, of course, there's at least 7 factors that we identified that companies are facing. And I think you've answered those challenges accurately, concisely, and informatively. So thank you for your time. This has been amazing. I wanted to let everyone know, if you'd like to meet with Vionerex, please reach out to us at info@technologysource.com or stop by our website, technologysource.com, and you can fill out a form